and hit record and start it off. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm one of the weirdos that I've been playing for like 25 years, and uh, you could be like, "What key are you in?" I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I could play some like really technical stuff. It's just weird. Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah,
I was that way for a long time too, man. And it wasn't until I started playing with bands that were like touring a bit.
I bet.
And then I got into some serious tributes, like there was
Yeah,
an Elvis tribute where, and they would say, "Go to the 6 chord, go to the 3 chord. This is a 2 3 5 progression. Away we go." And I'd be like,
right.
"Time out, man! Like if you show it to me, I can play it." But so after years of doing it without the theory, when we're starting out, when we're young, we don't want to learn all the theory because it feels like school and math and all that stuff. But you
Right.
get to a point, I was starting to listen to players like Vi, Satriani, Petrucci, all those dudes, and you need math to figure those boys out, and you need to
Yeah.
figure things out. So now, but I tell my students, man, like theory is something we learn, and then you kind of crumple it up and throw it over your shoulder, right? Because it doesn't care about what chords, what notes you play. It's whatever sounds
Right.
good is good. But theory's kind of it makes things a lot easier, especially if you're in the studio or if you're doing like a fly-in gig with someone, like you just showing up and then they're shooting out the Nashville numbers. It's nice to know key signatures and what chords you're going to. So it's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I've
Yeah.
I've always just been stubborn, and it's like I will play originals out in person, but I'll only play, or not originals, but I'll play covers, but only the songs that I want to play. If somebody
Okay.
has a request, probably don't know it. Probably
Yeah.
won't put it there. And
Yeah.
my son, he's really into like all the rock songs and stuff, but for whatever reason, he picked up on "Every Rose Has Its Thorn" by Poison, which
Oh yeah.
I'm not even like I can't get into that song, but he like loved it. So I'm singing it with him, and acting goofy. And one day we're out, and he's 3 at the time. And there's a guy at the guitar, and my wife goes up there and just requests that, and just off the top of his head,
Yeah.
he was playing it, remember the lyrics and everything. I was like, see, I couldn't do that. If somebody did that, I'd be sweating and being nervous.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I like. I played a couple duos up here with some cats that are pretty quick chord change guys, right? And we'll book gigs, or if there's a cancellation, we'll show up. And I used to be that way too, man. But now it's like they'll just start playing, and I just try to jump in. Like if I
Right.
see them starting and I can hear what key it's in or see, then we just jump in. Obviously, there's some songs you can't go out and play a Dream Theater song just by,
No, no.
oh yeah, man, it goes here. No, you can't do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, man, for sure.
No, I'm saying like that song's definitely an easy one, but I was just like, I don't remember the lyrics to that. So then I'd start like I would probably start panicking at that point.
Oh, lyrics, forget about it. But I could not remember one song of lyrics ever,
Yeah.
ever. There's no, I don't know how those people do like 40 songs and like I
Oh
don't
yeah.
have that. Chords and solos, different story, but words, no way. I could never do that.
And it's probably
Uh,
vice versa. People that just sing, they probably like, I have no idea how this guy or girl can do all that.
yeah, true story. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Chris, let's give you a formal introduction. So, ladies and gents, let's welcome the guest on episode 6. Today we have Chris Eveland, a guitarist that started playing live in cover bands at the early age of 17, recording artist signed with Sony BMG, and is currently in a touring ABBA tribute band that tours North America. So make sure to go see him live. He has recorded songs with Gary Lalonde from Honeymoon Suite and Forrest Williams from Big Wreck. He teaches guitar, is a studio session musician, and works live performance. I just feel like it could probably continue. And you probably just gave me a short list of
That's the
achievements.
condensed version. I also, yeah, I also have like a kind of a day job and all that stuff too, but just passionate about music. And I finally, thanks for the introduction, man. I'm
Yeah,
finally in a position where I can go off. If someone says, "Hey, we're going on tour. Can you go over 3 weeks?" I can. My kids are above 20 years old now. I'm not in a job where it's a 9 to 5. I'm in real estate, so I'm a realtor. So we can work a lot remotely.
nice.
Uh, and it's just a beautiful thing, man. Like we were in England last year on tour, and there's talks in British Columbia next spring with the ABBA band, and a lot of cool things coming up. And I could never do that when I used to be a factory guy working at Ford Motor Company building cars. I did that for 21 or 22 years, and there's no way I could tell them I'm taking off 3 weeks to go play Mamma Mia on tour, right? But as much as I wanted to, I just had to, and the kids were at an age where You needed that.
And you're in Canada, correct?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm in just outside Brockville, so about 40 minutes south of Ottawa.
Uh-huh.
So right along those. Where are you, man? Texas?
Texas currently, yeah.
Oh, home state of Pantera and the boys.
Yeah, yeah.
Right
You
on,
know,
man. That's cool.
it's
Where are they from?
where I'm
Arlington?
from, West Virginia originally. Long story short, we just left Florida and lived in Spain for 2 months and came
Oh,
back here to work on getting visas. And apparently, America doesn't want people to leave and live in Spain or anywhere else, probably for that matter.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we decided, since there's so much family here to help with our son and everything, that we're just gonna stay here. So now that
Oh,
we're here in Texas, maybe I'll go to Arlington and visit the Abbott Brothers gravesite and check that out.
there you go. Yeah, that's powerful. Eh? I got some family on the ex's side. They were from Roanoke, West Virginia. There, or is it Virginia? Roanoke, Virginia.
I think Roanoke is Virginia.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, West Virginia is. There's only like a few people that came out of there that's made it or done anything. It's one of those small town places where, like, I bet that the friends that are still there, they probably couldn't even believe I'm doing this. They're like, you have a podcast?
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, you just started. They have no idea how to do anything.
and how are you enjoying it? You liking the interviews and the?
Yeah, I'm learning a lot, and being like a hard rock metal guy mainly, but I listen to like everything but country. I'm starting to like broaden my horizons. I really like hearing like what people do, like producing hip hop. There was also like I think the guest I had before you was an opera singer in Italy, and has written a book. Nothing to do with music, but is also like an urban contemporary Christian singer.
Okay,
So it's a broad spectrum so far, just 6
cool, man.
episodes.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite, man. This is pretty cool.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for taking time out of the day for the podcast. So, if you could tell the viewers about your origins of gigging at 17 years old, like were you in cover bands or were you out playing originals or both?
Yeah, both. I mean, like it all started if I go way back. My grandfather was he was a piano tuner. So when I used to go to his house, I would see like 3 or 4 uprights torn apart. There'd be baby grand in the back and ashtrays on all these things. But every time I would see him sit down at these pieces of wood with the white and black keys, I would just hear the most beautiful things. I didn't understand. I was young, right? Like 5, 6, 4, whatever I was, but I heard this flurry of notes. And there he was with a cigarette hanging out his mouth and just having the best time ever. But it hit me. I remember getting goosebumps and being like, what is this stuff, right? And I've got a cool picture of me sitting on his lap while he's playing, and I'm kind of watching. And so that's kind of where the music started, I think. And then I got a cassette tape, and I fell in love with Van Halen early on. That was 1986, so I was 11 then. It was the #1 selling album that year, and that was the cassette I got for my birthday. And I had the yellow waterproof Sony Walkman, and that's the only tape I owned. So it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
And every time it came to that guitar solo, I just goosebumps. What the heck is that? Like I was just blown away. And thank God, man, because if you go to 1986 and look at the top 10 albums, it could have been something seriously worse, man. Like there was some real pop stuff going on. Nothing wrong with it, but it definitely wouldn't have set me on a path to being a guitar player. Maybe
That's when I was born. Yeah, I can't remember.
86?
Yeah, 86.
Yeah, I'm 75. I was like born in 75, but
yeah.
So I was happy to get that cassette. But then as I grew up, I would bring. You remember the guitar magazines with the tablature and all that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, still got them.
Guitar World. Yeah.
Oh, they were my Bibles, man. I love those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I would go to my granddad's house and open them up and set them on the piano. And he had never heard Van Halen or White Lion or Cinderella, whatever bands were big then. And he would sit there and just play like the guitar part and then the melody part with his other hand. Never heard it. But the coolest part is he'd get to the tab of the solo and my granddad would stop and he'd look at it and he goes, that doesn't make sense. And he would try it and he would giggle. He'd be like, that's brilliant. And he was talking about Eddie Van Halen, right? It's just the way it was. But anyways, I ended up buying a guitar and just started taking. My parents got me lessons when I was 14, and it was just a couple years later. I think I was in grade 12, but I started doing a co-op program at a recording studio in St. Thomas, Ontario, which is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so I was in the studio. I was meeting guys that were like 10, 15, 20 years older than me. So I was probably 16 at the time. And then there was a guy in there recording. He had a great voice. He had great originals. I was noodling in the studio, and he goes, "Hey man, can you throw on some leads on that?" Right. So I did, and he really liked it. And we just started forming a friendship, and then we added a drummer, and we ended up just having a band. So the first show I did was at a high school talent show. And then the bar owner down the street was at that talent show because he saw it in the paper. He came in. Back in the old day, that's what it was, right? There's no online. It's just the paper. Right. He came in, saw us play. He goes, "Hey, guys, I like your style. Like, do you want to play?" And it was at Eddie's Bar and Grill in St. Thomas. So we got to play there once. And then the second time I played there, we were opening up for a band called Harem Scarum. Have you heard of these guys?
No.
Oh, dude, you got to check them out.
What's the name again?
Harem Scarum.
No.
Oh, yeah. You got to check it out. If you like big vocals, harmonies, killer songwriting, ridiculous guitar playing, Pete Lesperance's a monster player, man. So it was like my second gig, and these guys come in, you know, the Marshall stacks and the whole lights. And at that time, they had, you know, the big late 80s hair, whatever. It was just like Motley Crue walked into the bar. It was something cool, man. But then hearing them play the first two songs, I was like, "Oh man, we're not doing this right." You know, that's how I would love to sound. And I became a huge fan of those guys, and very lucky over the years that I've had a chance to work. And we've recorded with Harry Hess, with Aaron and Canadian Idol and all that stuff. So I got to know those guys. But that was my first boom. Here we go. And then it was just cover bands, and then some originals too, right? But just like everyone else, when you went and played covers, at the end of the night you get paid. You played originals, you ended up owing money, you know, if it was bar tab, chicken wings. So as fun as it was,
right?
I would never change that. But so I've done them all, like originals, covers with a bunch of different bands, and then tributes is really where the seats are just filled when you go play a tribute band. And you'll see a lot of the venues these tributes are playing now, man. It's 7, 8, 9,000 seat club or theater, 2-tiered theater. It's a tribute band, and it's sold out.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some pretty awesome ones myself. I've seen a Rush cover band. It was phenomenal. I've seen, which is my favorite band, and then Pink Floyd, and they had the flying pig and everything, man. They had it was an awesome thing. Only I do remember spilling an entire beer on a girl in front of me on that gig.
Oh no! Oops.
Yeah,
sorry.
bad time. Sorry.
My bad.
Yeah. So who are your biggest influences, guitar-wise?
Well, even though Granddad's my biggest influence ever, but Eddie Van Halen was the first guy. Yeah. And Eddie was it. Like, I heard all the other guitar players in that genre were really, really cool, but it wasn't until I heard Satriani and Vi, and then they were like, it's just different, right? It's a different language. So Eddie's like, I love Eddie. I love his playing, and that's what got me going. I still go back and listen to it, and I get excited. But Vi and Satriani, I didn't understand because I didn't know theory at the time. I didn't know what scale they were using or where they were coming from, right? Like, what is that? It was super cool. Right. So that's what put me on that path until, you know, the 90s, that whole shift came with the grunge and everything that came in. Yeah. But that's when Dream Theater was just sliding in too. Early 90s. And then I heard about this John Petrucci guy, and I listened to the first album, and the time signatures were a little weird for me because I was used to, at that time, I was listening to Winger, White Lion, all that stuff, then Van Halen and Satriani. Dream Theater was really different. They were so unique. But I dug in pretty hard with those guys, and still to this day, every time this is a Petrucci here, this one. Yeah, I could tell that. I could tell the headstock on there. The Music Man, the JP6. And we just grabbed tickets to go see them in March. I think they're playing, where are we seeing them? Montreal or Rochester, New York. I can't remember. But yeah, Petrucci's my guy now. But there's some ridiculous players out there like Guthrie Govan, Matthias Assato. Who's that new guy from Italy?
But you're gonna say Animals as Leaders. Those are my guys.
Oh, Tosin Abasi too, man. What a player!
Abasi.
Just
Yeah,
eight-string, ridiculous play,
yeah.
right? Like, and
Those guys like Tosin and Frederick and Martin from Meshuggah got me into the eight strings. I have an eight string too, but
oh, cool,
you know,
man.
I'm not writing stuff like that yet.
Yeah. The seven string was a shift for me. I've never even tried an eight string. I know music. John's got one. He's got an eight string. Fretboard's like, you know what I mean? It's cool, but I just don't know. I'm getting close to 50, man. I don't know if I have the capacity to learn another string right now. I'd love to. It'd be cool to play with it.
Yeah.
But, man, I would never stick with it.
We were talking in our little test run before we started this. Can I get a tour of those awesome guitars you got? But can everyone else get a tour? Because that's a badass background there. And if my wife watches this, Aaron, that's what you have to look forward to, by the way.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the students I have, they go home and then they'll get like a hanger and they start with one. And then I hear, oh, they got a second guitar and then they have a second one. The reason they're like this is just honestly, man, like if I'm recording, I'm set up here at a home studio, I do online lessons. But if I'm recording for people and it's a country thing, then I go grab the tele or I go grab whatever, right? So if my guitars, and they were early on in my first marriage, the guitars were always in a case. Just opening up that case seemed like such a chore to get it out. When they're like this, I just grab them and start playing, right?
Yep.
But yeah, if I don't know how to doing this. Starting at the top there, that's a custom sparkly gold telly. One of my students, he's 75.
Nice.
And he builds guitars. And he comes in and I'll show you the cool one. They're all cool that he built, but he built that one. He lent me this one. It has a Fernandez sustainer in it. Have you ever played with one of those?
I've heard of them. I haven't played on one. I don't think I've ever seen one in real life, you know.
Ridiculous. And that's why if you can see the cord right there's a 9-volt battery hanging.
Yeah.
So what happens, it's like the old Ebo. So it just gives that shake. So if you listen to, like Eddie was starting to use it near the end of his career. Def Leppard, Phil Collins, he's using it almost the whole show. It's just that high-pitched feedback that goes an octave, sometimes 2 octaves up.
Oh, is that what that is? So I have a bad story about that. Yeah. So just long story short, being from West Virginia, this is a typical Tuesday. You walk into a guitar store. The dude that owns the guitar store is on drugs, probably. He goes, "I'll sell you the store for $2,800." I bought the store for $2,800, and I had probably about 28 guitars, and I sold it and made a lot of money. But one of them was a Kramer, I believe.
Yeah.
And I should have held on to that. I knew that, but it needed a little bit of work. But it was a Kramer, and it had a 9-volt battery, and I bet that's exactly what that was.
Oh yeah, it could be. Or sometimes those guitars too. There's passive pickups, and then there's active. So like if you ever play like a Zach Wild signature, he's got active EMGs, and they take 9 volts too. But it definitely, the Kramer could have had a Sustainiac or Fernandez. They're a lot of fun, man. They just take off and squeal for days. You could hold a note and it'll scream, I swear, like for 3 months. It's not going to stop because of that electro thing.
Okay, I'm going to buy one now.
Oh, dude, they're sick, man. They're sick. This is Sinister Gates signature model. It's a Schecter. That was a gift from some parents of a student. It was a beautiful thing. They blew me away with it. Their son was very, very quiet and reserved, but they came and they just said, thank you so much, because music has opened up his world a bit. Now he's social and playing with other guitar players. So they showed up with that one as a gift one time. It was just beautiful, man. Brian Setzer, signature Gretsch. This is a Kramer F1000. I told you in the beginning, like it used to be red, it turned pink. It was the flip flop, so it was red and purple, but it ended up being pink, so I painted black. That's my son Connor's handprint when he was about 4 or 5.
That's a genius idea there, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's the JP6, the Music Man. This thing, once we get into the chat about ABBA, that's my guitar student built that for me. He saw me Googling it, and I had reached out to 4 or 5 custom shops, and they saw the star, the point, and they all said, nope, 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 nope. And
it looks like a sand spur.
yeah, right? Yeah. But if you look at ABBA's video, Waterloo,
that's
the Waterloo guitar. And then that's in the ABBA Museum. And Billy Joe from Green Day, when he played in Sweden with Green Day, he pulled that out. The crowd went crazy. But so Don built that for me, and he gifted that, which was absolutely incredible. And it's a cool part of the ABBA show when we come out with that, so the real fans see that, and it's kind of like, that's another sparkly telly Don made. This is a Godin Fifth Avenue, and I'm endorsed by Godin Guitar Company. They're Canadian. They're out of Quebec. It's all Canadian wood, Canadian components. Yeah. This is the Montreal premiere, man, and it's gorgeous. I just got it 2 weeks ago. I can't put it down. It's a stunning guitar, man.
Yeah.
Fender Strat, walnut neck. That was a beautiful, beautiful Strat. And then the last two, I don't know how to do this, man.
What an awesome problem to have, right? There's so many guitars.
Let me see how to do this. Yeah, there we go. So that's a 75 Telly. So it's my birth year. I bought it off my best friend, John Millis. And Dream Theater signed the whole thing.
Wow.
I went to a VIP. Yeah, I got Petrucci's signature here, too. That's how much of a fan I am.
Wow, man.
Crazy. And that's a Taylor T5, and that's a Gibson Les Paul.
So when Dream Theater signed your autographed your guitar, which was that with Petrucci or Portnoy on drums, or was it Mangini?
No, I've never seen Portnoy with those dudes. It was Mangini for sure.
Yeah, I think they're going on tour again, aren't they, with Portnoy?
Yeah. It's their 40th anniversary, and we're going to see them in March there. I've only seen them with Mangini over the years because Portnoy left 15 years ago, right?
I got to see them. On the Gigantour.
Cool.
They took the stage, and then Megadeth closed it because that Gigantour is Megadeth's their festival tour or whatever. That's pretty cool though. But just to get to see them play for like an hour and a half was awesome, and it was with Portnoy. Not to rub it.
There's something special, eh?
Yeah. Me and my uncle waited forever outside to try to get some autographs, but we never saw them. They probably hung out and watched Megadeth.
Maybe, yeah. It was my wife. She got me. We both went to that show together. It was in Montreal, but she got the VIP package, and I didn't know. So when we got there, or she gave me notice so I could bring the guitar. So they were allowed to sign two things. I've got a picture. I got John to sign my arm, and they signed the telly, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And tell us more about the endorsement. How does the endorsement work? Because obviously, probably a lot of guitarists, such as myself, are interested in that and would love to have something like that happen to us.
For sure, man. And there's different tiers, right? Like, I'll just speak with the company that I'm with is Godin. So they have Alex Lifeson from Rush. They have Stevie Stevens, Billy Idol. Yeah, exactly, right? Derry Grand from Honeymoon Suite as well.
Yeah.
And a bunch of others, but I mean, those are pretty big players that have been in the industry for decades, right? So they would be like a tier one or whatever. So they have signature models. I'm sure the guitars just get shipped to those guys, right? Like there's just play our guitar, please kind of thing. There's tier 2, tier 3. So a lot of times it's just, I had reached out and we had a gig with ABBA in Sherbrooke, Quebec, which is just 20 minutes away from like Godin from their headquarters. I had reached out to them saying, hey, look, my buddy Randy Orr has a studio here in Brockville, and he has an LGX1 or something. It's a Godin. And I loved it. Seymour Duncan in the bridge and neck. And I played it in his studio, and I'm like, man, the neck's good. It plays well. It was set up right. And this Fifth Avenue, Donnie Osborne brought it by, and I played the Fifth Ave. I'm like, man, it's smooth. It's really good. So I hadn't played those guitars in a while. So I'd reached out and just said, we're playing close to there. And I'd sent them the ABBA, like the videos. And we're really lucky with that gig, man, because there's 800 to 1,000 people sold out shows in theaters. So they see the number of people that are there. Yeah. So I reached out to Fred DeSanto, who's the artist rep there. And we got in good communication. Gary Lalonde, who I'll tell you about, he's the bass player of Honeymoon Suite. My wife and I went to see the show, and he was a gentleman to bring us backstage and introduce us to the rest of Honeymoon Suite. So I got a chance to talk to Derry Grand about his signature tread model with the tire tracks on his, and spoke about the company. And his guitar plays like butter. Like, it's a gorgeous signature guitar, man. So I just reached out, and I wasn't expecting anything, man. And they came back and said, yeah, man, we'd love to work a deal with you. So artist pricing is a beautiful thing, man, because we can buy a couple extra. And it's great for the company.
How does it work? So do you have to, do they give you like a contract and say, you know, we'll maybe pay you if you play our guitar on these, you know, during certain gigs and things like that? Or?
I definitely don't get paid to play the guitars in the ABBA thing, right? Like that's never, yeah, I know. But it's not a contract too, so it's very, I forget the term for it, but it's not like I can only play Godin guitars on stage. That's not, I play my Gretsch, I bring my Petrucci, the Strats up there. I can play whatever I want, right? Back in the day when people had endorsement deals, it's like, you can only play this.
Right.
Because it was when people opened up magazines and they saw someone playing a Kramer, they wanted to buy a Kramer. So if you were playing a Gibson one day, they'd be like, hold on, what's going on? So no, I can play anything I want. They give me extremely good deals on these guitars. And yeah, no, I'm very happy with the company. They play great. They sound great. And I haven't put that one down, man. It's a beautiful guitar.
I know that you said Godin, and I was like, I know I've heard that before, and I want to say, another long story short, I was working for somebody when I was a handyman in Florida, and the guy was a huge Grateful Dead fan, and he had Jerry Garcia's luthier build him a guitar, and I was like, I should do that with Alex Lifeson. And I think I was looking at some of those 80s models guitars of his, and I think Godin was one of them.
Have you seen his new signature model?
Is it a Paul Reed Smith or
No,
is it
it's Godin.
I don't think so.
Yeah, check it out when we're done here if you want to Google it. But it's gorgeous. It's expensive. Like it's.
Oh, I bet he's got me into some financial problems, man. I walked into a store and I saw that was it Hughes and Kettner amp head, and I was like, he owns one of those. And I was, you know, playing on it, and it's like, oh, it sounds beautiful, and it was like
gorgeous,
$3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah. Have
No.
you played through Petrucci's Mesa Boogie yet?
I don't think his, but I played through a Mesa Boogie, and I think a few years ago, what is it? No, actually, this was like 5 or 6 years ago. I had my, I guess that you would call it my midlife crisis. I was like, I gotta get the rig that I've always wanted, because I've tried Black Star, Line 6, Marshall, you know, Orange amp. I've done all of it, and I tried to build my effect pedals. And I was like, you know what? I just want it to be small and be something. There has to be something out there with a lot of sounds to it. And I bought the Line 6 Helix floor amp, and I bought a Friedman stereo amp. And that combination right there is pretty awesome. But I think Mesa Boogie there for a minute, because I'm a real big fan of the Contortionist. Their guitarists, they have, I think they play 6 and 7 strings, but I think it's all in not just their guitars, but that Mesa Boogie. I think they play through those, and it's just like you can hit from that beefy 7th string all the way down to the high E, and you can hear all this beautiful sustain.
Nice.
And clarity is what I was going for. So I got that Line 6 Helix and the Friedman.
Yeah, good for you, man. I'm on Fractal right now. That's who I chose to go with for the time being. But some of my favorite presets are the Friedman. It's just, man, one amp. Amp. Yeah. Sounds pretty cool.
I haven't.
Go ahead, man.
I haven't spent that much time with it. Like that Line 6 can take months if you want to put time into it, because they have all the amps in there, and you can even change, you know, microphone settings and the placements of it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I'm not that guy, man. Like, I like to play. I had a buddy come over. He's a phenomenal guitar player. His name's Liam Deary, and he knows inside and out of these things, and he's a studio guy. He actually went to Metalworks and worked with Gil Moore from Triumph in the big Toronto studio. But anyways, he'd come over and help me out with some of that stuff. But yeah, I'd rather just plug in and play, right? But I'm glad I'm not lugging around Marshalls anymore, man. Dropping on stage and plugging in all in-ears now. I don't have to listen to cymbals or singers that want to be a little bit too loud in the monitors. Any of that stuff. It's so nice now, man. It's just comfortable. It's easy. It's clean.
guarantee that. Yeah, I haven't got to experience that yet, but
Okay, yeah.
yeah, I have done the inner ears just for like rehearsal, just for practicing.
Okay.
Especially when I'm playing guitar and singing, and you gotta have when you're in a little small rehearsal space and there's somebody just banging on drums, you have to place your amp in certain areas, and usually it's melting your face off with the sound. So it goes like those cool inner ears that kind of have the hole in them to where it doesn't block
Oh,
all the
cool.
sound. But
Yeah. And I'll tell. Do you know about ambience mics? Have you heard of those?
no.
It's pretty cool because when you're on a theater, when you're playing a theater or like a larger festival, and if they have lights that kill at the end of a song, if you have like noise canceling earbuds that like are sealed in there, as soon as you're done the song, you can't hear the crowd. You don't know if they're clapping, applauding. It's like dead, man. So now they have like ambient mics. They'll have two mics out front that pick up the sound of the crowd. So at the end of the song, you can actually hear the sound of the room.
Wow. I'm used to silence.
Yeah. Well, that's like again being back to an original band, right? Like mom and dad are up there, your neighbors supporting you, and I'm not knocking it, man. It's some of my favorite things to do is to go see an original band, especially
Yeah, definitely.
the ones that are out there hungry in the van that's falling apart, touring nonstop. Like there's an energy to that, and I miss it.
Yeah, you as soon as you said falling apart, I like immediately thought of James Addiction. I was just like, I don't know if you're a fan of theirs or have seen what happened to them recently, but
Yeah. I think it was LSD, right?
probably.
Like lead singer disease.
Yeah, definitely
Right?
that. For sure.
Yeah, Dave looked pretty cool, but yeah, I don't know what happened. But who knows, man? It's just like some families, right? You get tight with people. Who knows what happened? But I hope they. I saw they put out an apology to the fans, which was cool, and hopefully they continue that tour and just finish it up. But
I think they canceled it. I think they did yesterday.
oh, did they?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Makes sense, right?
it does. Dave
Yeah,
Navarro and all the guys in the band are pretty great. Yeah,
yeah.
we're gonna go on to more positive vibes. So,
Yeah, let's get away from Perry Farrell there. Yeah.
tell us about your friend that getting third place on Canadian Idol and how it affected your music career. Like sounds like you got to write music, record, and tour with him. Correct?
Yeah, well, as far as the writing process goes, because it's just like Canadian, like American Idol, right? As soon as they get off, and Aaron won third place the same year. So for you guys in the States, it would have been Chris Daughtry.
Oh yeah.
So Chris Daughtry got third place the same time Aaron did. So I was in a band called Hooligans Holiday, and we were just a cover band, and the singer couldn't make it. It was a last minute thing. I reached out to a guy in town. He said, "Hey, there's this guy named Aaron. He just got back, I think, from like a theater schooling or production or something like that. And he'll come out and sing." So I called him. He was a super nice guy on the phone. He goes, "Yeah, man, just send me the list. I'd love to do that." And it was just at some typical chicken wing place, right? Sticky floors and draft beer and all that stuff. He came in, and honestly, man, like we just did a quick sound check, and he was like, check, check, check. That was it. And song one, I don't know what it was, Fortunate Son, maybe CCR or something. As soon as he started singing, I looked around, I'm like, what is this?
Right.
Like this guy's got pipes, man. He had goosebumps for days, everyone around him. But anyways, we decided to book a couple other gigs, and it was right in the summertime. And Aaron says, "Hey, I got to go do this thing. I'm on this TV show. It's a singing contest." He never said idol in the beginning, I don't think. He said, "I'm going to go do this, but I'll be back. And if you can get more gigs, whatever."
Yeah.
So he went, and he got into the top 100 and then the top 50, top 25. And he kept messaging us. And then we found out, he said, "I'm on Idol." So then we watched it. And then our whole community was watching it because that's the way cities do, right? He got into the top 10. We're like, "Oh, like good for this guy." But well-deserved too, right?
Right.
That year, there was a lot of fluff, a lot of popular stuff, really, I'll say it nicely, but I mean, like, as far as musicality and soul goes, Aaron had everybody beat, and even the second place guy, he said, "Oh man, I don't want to go on and sing after Aaron. Like he's so good." Right. But he was, but he did well. Anyways, he got to top 5. He ended up getting third place. So that landed him a deal, Sony BMG through Harry Hess. He worked that for everybody. So it was a distribution deal. So it was pretty cool going on the other side of the country and seeing your CD up in a Walmart, where the songs were being played in a store. Not songs that I wrote by any means. But as soon as he was done, they were like, okay, we have to have the CD out now. It's very timed, right? So I can't remember the timeline, but I'm going to say like maybe 3 to 5 weeks had to get things going. We had only played covers in a band. We didn't have originals. Aaron had 2 originals that went on that album, I believe. But here we are in the studio now, and it's Harry Hess from Harum Scarum. Pete L'Esperance added guitar. He played like a lot of guitar on that too. So I'm sitting there in the studio, and it's just like those are 2 of my favorite players, singers, producers. It was really special, man. It was a really special moment. And we were in the studio right before Billy Talent, 3 Days Grace, and Ian Thornley was there recording his first solo album. So that was like the kind of rotation of bands.
I didn't even know that 3 Days Grace is Canadian. Yeah.
I'm not sure if they are, but they definitely recorded at Vespa Music Studios in Toronto. I don't know if they're from Canada, but they were recording in Canada for sure. I thought Billy Talent was from Europe when I first met the guys, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But it was cool. The guitar player let us use his the Diesel, the VH4, I think it's called. The walls were shaking. Yeah. I forget the wattage on that thing, but it was ridiculous.
Isn't that what Dime was using towards the end of his life there?
I think he had his solid state amp, right? That mega, what was that?
Maybe it was Crank.
Oh, Crank, that's it. Yeah, he was using Crank.
Diesel is what Adam Jones from Tool's using. Oh, yeah. Well, he uses a lot, but I know that as kind of like the peering in to see what, they were posting videos when they were showing that, they were hyping Fear Inoculum, their newest album. It was what, released 2020 or something like that. Yeah. I saw the Diesel amp. I was like, ooh, I've seen those before.
Yeah, plugged in. It was that amp was something special, man.
So you said you're born in 75 and you, 17. So I'm sure you've been in like studios. I always like asking people, this is going to be the first time I've asked someone on a podcast. Have you recorded back in the old days when they talk about, cutting tape when you mess up?
Oh, yeah. It wouldn't be me cutting the tape. Like it was the guys in the studio. But absolutely, man. It was always reel to reel then.
Tell me about that, please. That must have been
well, here's the thing. Back then, like a lot of stuff, you and I can record at home now, and I can send you stuff to Texas. You can send it back here. We send it to a drummer in Japan. We can send it to someone else to mix it. It's a lot easier these days. But like I never cut a piece of tape ever, but I've seen it done. I remember the engineers yelling and getting upset and getting mad and getting frustrated, right? But back then, you would buy blocks of time. So if it wasn't like, here's how much money per song, if you were doing it by the hour, and I don't know about you, man, there'd be some songs flow so easily on the guitar, but then there's some songs like, oh, I just can't get that one part. It may not be a challenging part. It's just a little bit of a mind block, right? Or keyboards. There's a lot of musicians that just certain parts of a song, I can't get over it and whatever. So if you're in the studio doing that, you do get the odd. You start turning to look like, are you good? Yeah, because it wasn't cheap, man. Anytime you went in, it wasn't like here tonight, I could work on a solo for a week and it's not costing any money. I'm just working on it, record it, send the stem to someone, right? But back then it was kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first time I ever recorded was probably 2002, 2003. And the guy had an old studio. He had a big mixing board, but it was all like he had platinum albums or probably gold albums of like Christian artists that he recorded. And us being from West Virginia, we, where I lived, we could go this way or that way and cross a bridge, be in Kentucky or Ohio. Okay. And we just, this is old. And look at the yellow pages in the phone book and start calling recording studios. That's how we did it. And we're just like, this is the type of band we are. We want to know if you can make us get the sound that we wanted. And we called him Studio Steve. And we showed up there and we had 3 songs. Oh, we were like Oasis immediately. Like we were fighting over lyrics in the studio. We were fighting over the 3 songs that we chose. And we had like 10 to 12 or whatever. It was funny. But I remember certain things like we can't put so many tracks on there. It'll sound too beefy, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, what is this? This is digital. Why can't we make it sound good or whatever? But
Yeah.
the guy did have reel to reel in the background though. And I, watch all these awesome albums, like how they were made in the 70s and 80s. Hearing about the reel to reel, it's like, yeah. And I was nervous then, and I still get nervous even with like digital.
Yeah.
Before I hit record, it, like you said, it could be something like something I could play all day, any day. But as soon as I hit record, it was like, oh man, you get the like stiff fingers.
The studio humbles us because
Yes,
when they hit playback and you hear it, you're like, that's not good. But sometimes in the moment when you're playing something, it feels really good. But when you hear it back, and that's why I tell students all the time, like record yourself, but then put the guitar down, press play and listen. Because when we're playing, you can hear it, but we're not listening to the full extent if you're not doing anything else, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, the studio's been, I had guys over the years too, right? They would come back in for whatever reason, they would put input in, like, can we change this? I'm like, yeah, sure. For what reason? Oh, just because I want to. Okay, well, let's try it. No, let's not try it. Let's just do that. Right. I'm like, well, how about we just try it? And everybody just says, hey, what's, so there's some different people that want their input just for it to be their input instead of, hey, what's best for the song?
Right.
Yeah,
sometimes you got to serve the song, and it that'll improve it tenfold for sure.
Yeah.
How about telling us about the ABBA tribute band? You mentioned that, and that's what you're doing currently, correct? Amongst all the other things.
Yeah, like last year was crazy. I got a little silly during COVID, and I probably signed up for like 9 bands because we were all at home, we're all locked up. So I was like, yep. And then as things opened up, I was like, oh shit, this is a lot of rehearsing, and this was a lot of. I took on probably too much over the last couple of years, but the ABBA thing, I got a call from a guy who says, do you want to be in an ABBA tribute? And I'm like, no, I do not really. Is there a guitar in ABBA? And then, but I'll tell you why I said no, is because it takes a certain level of musicianship to play that, right?
Right.
Like, I love Zeppelin, but if someone said, you want to do a Zeppelin tribute? I would be like, well, can I meet the singer? And can I hear him sing? Because if you're not doing Robert Plant, then it's not a Zeppelin tribute.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, I didn't say no, but I joked about it. I'm like, I don't know about ABBA. Like, is it going to be wigs and silly outfits? And like, is it, like whatever. But then I thought, I just moved to the area. I'd left Oakville, which is Toronto. I just left the job and met a beautiful woman up here, and changed my whole livelihood, and life was getting really good. And I said, yeah, sure. Because at that time, I wasn't playing with a bunch of people. Aaron went on to do, like, he's in theater productions. He travels the world doing theater stuff, which is amazing for him.
Yeah.
But when I went and met the people in ABBA, the coolest part about their rehearsal is they did like half-hour music and then a half-hour couch time. So they're like, okay, this person can play, but can we light the barbecue with these people, and can we hang out? Can we go on the road? And I love that. So it was cool that they did that. It's the first band I've ever been in that has a lawyer and a doctor in it. That's for sure. Right? Most of my guys wanted to play a gig every night to make cash just so they could eat, right? Like back then. So there was some professional people. Hey?
That's smart. I'm gonna look for a lawyer and a doctor, because that's and a nutritionist and a physical therapist. Just make everything.
All of it, right?
Yeah.
Check.
But I met them.
Yeah. So it's not like I'm not Bjorn, right? I'm not in the front. I'm in the back line playing guitar. There's the front four, and then there's the back line. But the girls started singing. They were so good, man. They had the whole system. They had the in-ear racks. They had everything going. It's all personal in-ears too, not a general mix, right? So it was a cool rehearsal spot. They were really nice people. They were genuine. Some of them were pretty fresh into playing live, right? Not that means anything. And I tell people about a story of Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai. Billy Sheehan had 1,000 or 2,000 shows in. Steve was pretty new when he came out and did the Roth tour or whatever. Both incredible musicians. But when Steve's pedal broke, Billy would pick it up, rewire it, tape it up, set it back down, because he had done that 300 times. He had his time in, right? So, and this was an interview with Steve Vai. So there were some people that weren't used to, um, what we're doing now, but I've seen it grown. I've been there since the first show. I think it's been 5 years now. COVID slowed us down just like everyone else, but we're gigging a lot. I'm leaving next week for the East Coast. So we're doing Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, doing the whole East Coast of Canada. Then we're doing upstate New York in November. We're off to BC next year. They're great shows, man, and it's so much fun.
Nice. So how often are you gigging?
Like I think in October, this isn't the norm, but October we have 10 or 12 shows because of the tour. It's probably 25 to 30 gigs a year. I think like with my schedule being a realtor, I can go more. The one guy's retired. The other guy, there's some few people that are self-employed that can be like, hey, let's go. But there's some other people being close to Ottawa, right? Government jobs or whatever, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So they can't take off too much time, holiday hours. So that kind of restricts how much we could play. But I'm telling you, man, we had a string of shows there, maybe 26 or 28 shows in a row that were sold out.
Nice.
Like it's crazy. It's the widest age spectrum I've ever played for. So there'll be a 5-year-old there singing every word, and there'll be an 85-year-old there singing every word. From song one, if we're starting with Waterloo or Gimme Gimme, whatever, song one, people are up and they're moving.
That's awesome. Is it just you guys, or do you have people that open up for you, or you play before anyone?
Because of our setup, it's tough to have an opening crew. Like a few of us have mentioned, it'd be cool to have like a solo or a duo show come in and just do acoustically. But because our setup is so big, it's a 10-piece band, no tracks. It's all live music, and we have, guitars, 2 keys, acoustics, mandolin, saxophones. There's everything in it.
Right.
Beautiful harmonies. Like 7 or 8 people in the band have microphones, right? And our sound man has one of the best voices. He's not even singing. You should hear our sound man sing. He's incredible. So he comes on the road, and my wife helps out with all the behind the scenes stuff. So we have a photographer that comes with us. So there's a team of people that roll into a city for this, and it's quite the production.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man.
Any of those tours going to be in North America, in Texas?
I hope so, man. Like I hope this thing, because you see some ABBA tributes, the ones from Sweden, they come over here, and some of ours, we're talking about going to the UK. Our drummer Jim kind of takes care of a lot of that stuff, and I think he mentioned UK 2026.
Here's something awesome. I've always been curious. How do you get all that gear from one country across the ocean to another country?
Yeah, man. I used to think the same thing.
How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, when I toured the UK last year, I rented a Les Paul and I brought my Fractal. So I had my Fractals, a carry-on, and that's it. We rented a van, vans to go or bands to go. I can't remember. So it showed up with the drums, the bass, the rigs, DI. And there's a lot of bands now that just don't use amps, right? It's all DI, like direct.
Yeah.
But when you're playing the bigger shows, you don't have to bring a PA anymore. It's provided by the venue. So like with ABBA, when we show up, these theaters we're playing, they have the columns. All that's there, man. We just have our own personal stuff, right?
Right.
But if we go overseas, obviously with that amount of gear, we have to rent. So it won't be like, our drummer couldn't take his personal kit over there. But I wouldn't want to either. I've heard horror stories, man, of guitars on planes and getting lost and crunched and cracked. No way. I couldn't. I'd rather rent a Strat and Les Paul and call it a day. It's all good.
Yeah, I took my my 8-string that I have here with me. Out of I think 9 guitars, I took that one with me over to Spain, and we put the Apple tag in there to track it, and we just about lost it.
Oh, nice.
Or they just about lost it. But when I got it back, my perfect case that had never been cracked or whatever, you could tell that they were just like throwing that thing around.
Did you detune your strings too?
Nope.
Yeah. I've heard horror stories of that with the pressure change and everything in the necks. You're supposed to detune it like super slack, I guess, but
that's smart. Yeah, that makes sense.
Obviously, we want to go with our instruments, right? Like if I did a tour in Europe, like a bigger one, I'd love to bring my favorite guitars because it's a lot easier to speak with our own instruments, right? But
definitely. So where do you go to rent them? Is there like a website?
Yeah, yeah. So in England, it's not called rent; it's called a hire. So that threw me off for about a week. I'm like, what's going on? There's no instrument rentals there, but it's instrument hires. And I can't for the life of me remember but this thing was really cool. It was a music store, and they were tied to a transportation company, and they worked together. So we rented a band van. It was a 9-seater, really high. Stick shift was on the other side. It was a horrible first time experience driving on this side, stick shift. Heathrow Airport, so it was 9 lanes of a turnaround. It was crazy.
Wow.
But we showed up at the airport, and all of our gear was loaded in the van right at the airport. Super
That's
easy.
awesome.
Yeah, and when we're done, you just leave it there, and then they come pick it up.
That's awesome. I know that there's bound to be like not a factory, but just like a huge store, probably in most countries where you can just go walk around like, I'll take that, I'll take that. Just kind of like a big candy factory, a candy store for musicians.
Yeah.
For rent. Yeah. Can you? How about telling us about your time as a studio session artist? So it looks like you mentioned recording with Gary. Is it Gary Lalonde or Lalonde?
Lalonde, yeah.
Lalonde.
Yeah, I just met him through Randy Orr. We were at breakfast one time where we were all talking about gigs. And then Gary was there, and he mentioned that. And I hadn't met him yet, so I didn't know who he was. And he mentioned he had a gig somewhere. I'm like, oh, yeah, like, where are you playing? And he listed some of the venues that he's playing. And I'm like, hold on, man. Those are 10,000 seat venues. What's going on? And he's like, well, the band name is super humble guy, one of the sweetest men I've met in rock and roll, hands down. But he said he's in Honeymoon Suite, and it was really cool because Much Music, you guys had MTV, right?
Yes.
Much Music was Canadian, so there was a Pepsi Power Hour, so all of my favorite bands were on during that hour. But I used to watch Honeymoon Suite nonstop, right? Like they were part of that rotation and really good stuff. And then so I got to meet Gary, and then I wrote an instrumental called Within. I reached out to Forrest Williams from Big Wreck, see if he'd play drums. And he was a sweetheart of a dude. He sent like a video of how he mic'd up the drums, what he used. He was a really, really cool guy. I think he's in Boston. Mm-hmm. So that was cool to have, a guy that played with Big Wreck on the first 2 albums and played with Ian Thornley. So I had that, and then I asked Gary if he'd jump in, and I was blown away when he said yes. So he played bass on it, and I went home and I listened to Forrest and Gary playing bass and drums. I'm like, man, I don't want to touch it. I just want to save that forever and just keep it because it was pretty special.
Yeah.
But then I threw on some acoustics and did a really cool intro thing, a tapped harmonic over a drone. And then it's just an instrumental, but it wasn't like a flashy, how many notes could I play? Mm-hmm. I tried to do it more in the style or the vein of Satriani, where it was a guitar, but it was a guitar playing like a vocal line. Mm-hmm. It's called Within. So, I've been on a little bit of a spiritual journey of myself, getting better and getting healthy and being the best version of myself that I could be. So within means a lot to me, right? If you don't go within, you go without. And the name just came in. So I called it Within, and that was the first recording I did with Randy. Released it on Spotify. It had some good streams over the last couple of years. And yeah, it was really, really cool working with Gary.
Awesome. And that already opened up like a door or two of questions. I always want to ask people that aren't young. I'll have a young person on this podcast one of these days, somebody that's like 18 to 24 or something. But for us guys, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, how do you feel about like releasing music? Because when we did, you're already laughing. You know what I'm going to ask, because it's so you get lost in the mix, man. It's just like you don't know what to do these days. Back in 2002, 2003, when we were teenagers and we had a lot to say and a lot of things to prove, we recorded a demo. We drove it and handed it to the radio stations. That same evening, we were on the radio, and people were coming up to us as we're out partying and knew us somehow, some way. Heard you were on the radio. Heard that song. That's awesome. And it builds, and you play shows, and you think that you're gods when your little town like loves you or whatever. But
it's a good feeling, right? When you hear that. All that work, and then the work it took to get out there, then you finally hear it on the radio or someone calls you back then. say, hey, I just heard your song on the radio. It's a pretty powerful. It was a pretty cool feeling, yeah.
And then there's now where it's like you put all this time and effort into recording, and you spend your own money to put towards the studio, and then you release it, and it's like you don't know where to go, because if you just release it on Spotify, for instance, like we have, it's like you're just going to fall on deaf ears. You have to find all these different outlets, and it's almost like trying to find that one thing on TV these days. Whereas like back in the day, you used to have cable. You just flip it on, you could watch football. Now it's like, you have to have Peacock, you have to have Amazon Prime.
Yeah. It's almost too much anymore, right? It's overwhelming. Like
it is.
Yeah, and I don't know the number of it, but you said you're on Spotify. What's the band name or whatever? I'll check that out when we're done.
Yes, sir. It's Vibrant Swings.
Vibrant Swings?
Yeah.
Cool, man. I'll check that out.
That's more like demo.
Yeah. So I think what you gotta, or what I do anyways, is like, why are you releasing it, right? When I was in my 20s up to my 30s, probably, if I wanted to release original music, it was because I wanted to tour the world. I wanted to do music full time, and I wanted to be on the, I just wanted to be. It had nothing to do with like being in a magazine or popular or famous. It was just being able to write, record music, grow as an artist, and be able to support myself financially doing that. Like following my passion, right? Like doing that. That's why I wanted to do it then. Nowadays, I'll be honest with you, the reason I do it, like Rail City Route is something I'm doing with my best friend, John Millis. And it's just songs we've written over the last 15 years. It's kind of acoustic, but we add a little bit of stuff in it. Right. Those are songs that we've just had that we want to get recorded. Right. So it's by no means we're trying to get a deal, trying to do this, whatever. We're just putting it out there so we have it. As far as my instrumental stuff or my solo stuff, and I have a bunch of stuff lined up with singers coming in. So it's music I've written, but I have different people singing it.
You're right.
I put myself out there as like an available guitarist. I'm available for touring, available for bands, all that kind of stuff, recording. So if somebody reaches out and says, hey man, we're looking for a guitarist in the studio, can you send us anything? I hate sending YouTube clips of live stuff because the sound off the phone is just, it's not good. So I just direct them to the Spotify page or whatever, and I say, give it a listen, see if you like it. If it's not for you, but at least it gives them a sense of, okay, maybe he's melodic, or maybe, it's the sound quality is good, or whatever they take from it, or maybe it's not what they're looking for, right? But at least, hey, yeah, go check that out. So for me, it's more of it's a networking thing or having something available. Also, I have all these ideas and riffs inside of me. I want to get them out. It's like making having a baby, having a child. It's like, there it is. Okay, there you go. Away you go. And then on to the next one. Because if not, they just stay in your head. Or if I record it and leave it at home, they'll never get heard, right?
Definitely. And I just, as a guitarist, even without riffs, sometimes it's just like, I got to pick it up and play. And just within seconds, you'll have something. But I think it's a sickness. It's like, I can't go without my guitar. My wife was like, we're going to be in Spain for 2 or 3 months. You can't go without your guitars. I'm like, hell no. I might lose my licks, Yeah. My muscle memory is going to just fade. So I have it.
I do think it is good to put it down for a little while sometimes. Like if I play every single day, I find I start to play some things that are fairly repetitive. But if I put it down and come back after 2 or 3 days, it's like a different lick or a different pattern or something will come out because it's kind of fresh, right? But if I'm playing every single day for 3 hours a day or whatever, it starts that you fall into you do anyways, you fall into a little bit of a pattern. But taking a break once in a while is okay, but I couldn't do 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but it's like a common thing ever since I started playing. I've been playing 24 or 25 years now, and I might be throwing a request, hey, learn this song, and then I learn, or I start to practice it. It might be something that's like super difficult. A lot of notes, you got to try to remember odd time signature, the notes and everything, and you kind of struggle through it. I'll play it for a while, practice it, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and it's there all of a sudden. Like I just every single time. I don't know what it is, but it's not. I'm not saying Dream Theater. No,
I hear you.
Story.
I hear you, and it's also flexing a muscle when we write songs. When we do it more frequently, new ideas come in. We get better. I feel we get better and stronger at it, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
That's like my YouTube channel. I put it up for the students. It's just a bunch of guitar solos from popular songs or sometimes not popular. But I love the progress of it because I don't just hit record, play a solo, and then put it on YouTube. It's like, oh my God, I just can't get it yet. I'm almost there. I'm almost there. There's certain techniques, especially Guthrie Govan and those guys, like, where did that come from? It's just something my hand has never played. Not saying I can play like that guy. But it takes time, like a Petrucci solo, it takes me a while. Like I'm at 40, 50% for a while. And then bump it, bump it, bump it, bump it. Hopefully, if it's not too technically ridiculous, get to 100% to record it. And, yeah. I love the process of it.
Likewise, definitely. And
Cool.
you mentioned that you teach guitar. Where do you do that in case anyone that's viewing wants to reach out for you for lessons?
Yeah, man. So on Facebook, Chris Eveland Music. So I do online lessons. I have students on the West Coast, East Coast, Northwest Territories. I got students everywhere online, but also in my home studio here. Come in, right? So yeah, if they want to reach out there, then I love. My favorite people to teach is the guys that are like what you said in the beginning. Like, man, I can play this. I just don't know what it is. Because now we don't have to worry about the technical stuff. You can already rip. But let's talk about what you're ripping. And then that opens up doors. And I love seeing light bulbs go off because every time somebody would say something to me, I'm like, is that it? Like that's, I thought modes were like the biggest thing to me where I was like, don't talk to me about modes, man. That's crazy. But when someone said, oh, it's just this, like, that's it?
Well, you could probably, I might even take one of your lessons.
Cool,
I had taken lessons when I was 11 or 12, and the dude just taught me to read tablature. It was funny. It was like, it was actually a really nice big store, guitar and drums and bass, keyboards, whatever. It's closed down in our little hometown now, but it's down in the basement is where they had the lessons. And the guitar lessons, like you would literally just bring your guitar and it would be, I can't remember this guy's name, but he would just smell booze and cigarettes big time. And you get in there, and it's such a small spot. It's like you're hitting your knees against each other.
Okay.
And he's got his amp, and there's an amp in there. You plug it in, and he's just like, so what do you want to learn, man? And, I bring my 6-string in there. I'm like, I want to learn Corn and Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
But yeah, that's where I started at. But he taught me tablature, and that's all I've ever learned off of tablature. And then back in I think 2014, I got inspired to kind of like just go see what happens because I was getting bored with playing and everything. And I was met my drummer buddy that we were getting serious about writing. We've always been serious, but I went in there and the guy was just like, okay, you can do all this. He goes, you're like as good as me, but it may be better or whatever. But he goes, you need to, like you said, learn what's going on and learn scales, the Dorian scale, yada, yada scale. I think, and that is a huge problem for me. I think playing stuff like on a bluesy scale, I can do that all day, any day. Because those solos are easy. I can just, freestyle that. But some songs that I've written, I struggle to write, and I should write solos quicker. But I just need to find, if I knew what scale that I'm writing in, then I could start soloing in that scale, and that would eliminate just noodling, basically, because that's all I've ever done.
100%. Do you know three note per string patterns? Have you ever gotten into those?
I don't think so.
Yeah, see, that's where things change for me. Like pentatonic, right, is 2 notes per string. That's it. When you get into the 3 note per string patterns, there's 7 shapes. Okay, so that's major scales, like do, re, mi. That whole thing's 7 shapes of this. Mm-hmm. But those 7 shapes are major, Dorian, Mixolydian, Lydian. They're all the modes too. The shapes don't change. So the big thing that opened me up, Daniel, was if I play a C note on lead guitar over top of a C chord, that's the root note. If I play a C over top of A minor, that C is now a third. So intervals change everything. So you can sit there and play a lead all you want. It's the chords underneath the lead that are going to dictate how people feel because of that interval distance. Right? A root note feels safe and it feels at home, but if you're playing a major 7th, so that C would be a major 7th in a different scale, it would be creating a lot of tension with the chord underneath it. So these backing tracks and everything that are available on YouTube, you can get jazz, metal, rock, punk, whatever style you want, whatever key you want. I couldn't do that back when I would have to ask someone to play 4 chord. Can you go to my right? And I never. So if you sit there and improvise with a pentatonic scale, it's good. You start playing that over top of a backing track, it's way better because that note changes when you go to the 4 chord, the 5 chord, whatever. It just changes the feel.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I remember him talking about that, but I only took like a couple of lessons. What I ended up doing, and I'll definitely revisit that because it's probably a great knowledge to have as a player. But I ended up leaving that. I think I did maybe 2 or 3 lessons. He gave me a sheet. He's like, all you got to do is study the sheet and you'll be all right. Yeah. Okay. So I'll put my money towards the guy that teaches about recording on Logic Pro, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
Ooh, and then I learned how to record on Logic Pro, but not how to mix and master. And when you view our music, you'll see that.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah, mixing and mastering is a whole other art, and it's difficult.
It is, right? Like mixing, I enjoy, but mastering, someone else has always done that. Like we go to H-Bomb, and that's Harry again. Harry Hess does all the mastering for everybody. If you look at the list of the artists that guy's worked with, it's ridiculous. And he'll send it back in a couple of days, and it's perfect. It's
right.
got his stamp on it, which is amazing. Yeah, it's really good.
Very nice.
Do you know, before we go anywhere, just because you're into this, you said Dorian. Do you know what Dorian is?
I don't. I just remember the name.
That's okay. I'll just say something real quick and see if it's that Dorian is the second mode of a major scale. So do you know how to play C major?
I probably have played all chords, but I just don't know the names of the chords. Now I do know like C, G, D, F, B, A.
So when someone explained it to me this way, I'm like, nah, it can't be. It can't be. So major is 1 and Dorian is 2. So D Dorian is the exact same notes as C major, but you just focus on the D more as the root, right? So it's not like D Dorian. What is that magical thing? It's not. It's C major, but you're starting on D and ending on D, right? So yeah, dude, it's just Phrygian is the next one. So Phrygian is the third one. So E Phrygian is the exact same notes as C major. So as long as you know your C major scale, don't play C major over top of an E Phrygian backtrack, but do that. But just focus on the E, or there's certain note values. Not to go too deep into a lesson, but when someone said Dorian, it's the exact same as the letter before it. So B Dorian is the same as A major. That's it. So if you know your A major scale, don't worry about B Dorian. Just start on the B, play the same notes, and you're in B Dorian. And it changes. It just, light bulbs go off, and you're like, I sound like, like a scale Santana would be Dorian. So when you start playing that, it doesn't sound like A major anymore because of the chords that are underneath it too. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, well, I play a lot of like Rush and Pantera. And
cool.
Now I may not remember how to play most of the solos, but I have learned them and been able to shred them at one point, like almost every single one of them. So
I like the solo and walk. That's one of my favorite. He's doing that little fun stuff.
Now that one I can play.
Oh, cool, man. That's a great one. Yeah.
That one I refuse to forget because I love it. That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So last question I have for you. This is an awesome podcast right now. I love this conversation because from one guitarist to another. You're the first guitarist I've had on here now that I think about it. You mentioned that you work live performance too. So what all do you do with live performance, and how do you gain that knowledge?
Live performance, yeah. So just anybody that reaches out, like it gets to a point when you've done it enough, and I think like I'm over 3,000 shows already. But I know some guys. There's some guys in town here that are well over 4 or 5, like Jeff Callery, amazing singer songwriter in town here. He's probably got the most amount of shows that I've met. But after you've done that for a bit, the scariest part was I think I was playing with an Elvis tribute, and they said there's a Buddy Holly tribute here tonight. I said, oh, cool. Like I'll go in the crowd and watch that. And they said, no, you got to play it. I said, Yeah, I don't know any. Like, I know the names of a few songs. I've never played any. I was sure it was just a 1-4-5 and all that stuff.
Right.
But the old joke of how do you get a guitar player to turn down the volume? You put sheet music in front of them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way I was for the first 4 or 5 years. But it was all charted out. So there was a binder off to the stage. It was pre-tablets and iPads, but there'd be a binder off the stage, just charted out a bit.
Yeah.
But the keyboard player was Dean Harrison, I think, from London, Ontario. Incredible piano player. He would start the song off and I'd have to just jump in and vamp. The fear of that one was a lot because it was my first time doing it. But now, like I said, when I jump up with Jeff or John Wilberforce, my good friend up here, he's a ridiculous musician, like so good, so talented. But he'll be like, hey man, like let's write something right here. And we'll be in a pub, we'll be playing, and he just starts on A minor 7 and goes. And it's a lot of fun because sometimes it feels like you're falling down the stairs landing on your feet, but we make it work. You know, so it's not anything we've ever rehearsed. It's not a song that's ever been recorded. We'll just start improvising, you know, and if I do a thing and he switches to a chord, we do it together. So after a while, if you do get a call from like a Pink Floyd tribute you mentioned earlier, right? There's some pretty guitar, like you wouldn't want to go up and improvise the solo to Comfortably Numb, right? You'd want to play it note for note. But if a band called and said, hey, in 2 weeks, we need somebody for this show, you feel comfortable enough to be, hey, I'll put in the time and I'll show up. I don't need to show up and rehearse with you guys. Give me the sound files. Let me know intros and endings, what keys you're in. Send me the stuff and I'll meet you at the gig, you know? And I know a lot of guys in the circle that do that. They'll show up. They're just fill-ins or call-ins. And sometimes people get sick. They slip on ice. They hurt their fingers. They kids, you know, the kid's sick. They got to stay home, you know, parent first, all that stuff. Right. You kind of got to be available. So the more you put yourself out there, it's actually a small group, you know, like the musicians. You think there's so many, but when you get playing these really, really cool gigs, it's a smaller circle of people. And as long as you're easy to work with, there's no ego, no attitude. If you've got good gear and you can play the songs, the calls do come in. So that's why I promote the live performance. Like if a band was going on tour and needed a player, I could go out for a couple of weeks and help them out with their stuff. And you know, no long-term commitment, just fill in.
Do you feel, just one last question, do you feel like since COVID, are things opening like wide up? So obviously you were touring before COVID and, you know, now it's 2024. Do you think that people might be staying home more, or are they actually coming out in groves? Are they coming out a lot?
It's so like in the rock stuff or the duos and things like that. I think, you know, if anything, the only thing that I see change is we're going on a little earlier. Like the pub shows are like at 8 to 11 instead of like 11 to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Which is good. I love that. I'm fine not showing up at 4 a.m. anymore and doing that. But the ABBA stuff is a different animal just because there's such a market for it.
Yeah.
People are there. Like the seats are full, man. So we're not playing to empty chairs. Like it's every show we've done. Like if you go online, go on Facebook, SOS the ABBA Experience, you'll see the pictures. We just played at University of Guelph. They had the security fence there and all the kids are doing it, like 19, 20 years old. It looked, if you mute it, it looks like a Metallica concert. Right? Just, I love it.
Yeah.
But it was all love. There was no violence there or anything. Everything was, no, I don't think I'm seeing too much of it anymore.
Good. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, that should wrap it up. Unless if you want to pull out another plug, you know, it sounds like you've got a lot of things going on, other bands. If you want to talk about that, I'm open for it. But yeah,
I think I mentioned everything. Rail City Roots. I've got some original songs coming out with Lindsay White. She's one of the singers from the ABBA band. Phenomenal voice, super powerhouse. But yeah, I have a link tree, Facebook. If you go there, all the things are available there. And then a lot of my musician friends, their stuff is there too. Go check it out. But I appreciate you taking the time to do this to help people spread the word, man, and support live music and original music. I really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Again, thanks for your time and thanks for being my guest today.
It was nice meeting you, man.
You too. I'm going to end the recording now. Let's see.